Someone asked me the other day which one of the M4 Mac Mini options represents the best value for money. And that's a question that appears to have an obvious answer. The base model, right? Well, yes, but also no. At £600 or dollars, the base M4 Mac Mini represents excellent value. You get an amazing CPU which offers the best single-core performance on the market at the moment, and multi-core performance which is on par with the M3 Pro chip, at least in synthetic benchmarks. Graphics performance is easily enough for 1080p gaming, even on fairly demanding titles, and you've got that very fast neural processing unit for machine learning and AI tasks. It comes with 16GB of RAM as standard and has full Thunderbolt 4 support. And I'm not aware of any other computer that competes on performance, power, efficiency, connectivity speed, and size at this price point. It's astonishing value, but, and there's always a but, there is a fly in the ointment, and that's the size of the storage. You're only getting a measly 256 gigs in that base model. Is this a problem? After all, I've frequently recommended the use of cheaper external storage, and I did a video about this USB 4 enclosure, in which I've installed a 4TB super fast SSD for about £300. So why not just buy the base model and use external storage? And you probably should do that, but maybe not with the base 256 gig model. And here's my reasoning. But before we get there, here's a quick word from our video sponsor. There is no sponsor. You're welcome. Your internal SSD needs to have enough space for your operating system and all of your frequently used apps. You're going to need to have space for temporary file storage, and you'll need free space when you want to update the operating system. SSDs don't work as well when they get close to capacity, so you'll want to maintain some headroom so that the drive has space to do necessary housekeeping tasks, things that keep itself running optimally. Now sure, you could put some of this stuff onto external storage, but that requires extra steps, and not every user is going to be confident in doing things like locating apps or moving home folders to external drives. So stuff ends up on the internal drive, and you'll want to have some space there. Don't forget also that we've seen larger SSDs tend to be faster than the smaller capacities, so you'd probably be taking a hit to overall performance with the smaller drive, though I will say I haven't specifically tested that on the new Mini. Another question I do get asked is, can I boot from an external drive and use that as my main system drive? That's a good question, to which the answer is yes, you can do that, but you probably don't want to. Some of the security features in macOS require the internal drive. Things like Apple Pay won't work if you boot from an external drive. And it also would seem that the new Apple Intelligence features won't work either, which some might see as a good thing. So for all of those reasons, I have to say that I'd probably spec a 512GB SSD, and that upgrade will cost you a third of the price of the base model on its own. And that pushes the total to £800 or $800. And that's definitely hurting the value proposition, but it doesn't kill it entirely. Even at that price, it's still a good computer, and the additional storage makes it more usable and better future-proofed. But this ludicrous upgrade cost will of course start all the angry comments about how Apple is ripping off its customers. And yes, it is, but if you want to be in the Apple ecosystem and use macOS, that's what you have to deal with. And it's no good saying, oh, you can buy a PC for less, because that argument assumes that a computer is just about the hardware. And it isn't. Software is just as important. Personally, I do use PCs just as much as Mac, and I'm happy with either, but that's not true of everybody. And if you want or need to use macOS, that's a perfectly reasonable choice. That being said, let me just show you how nuts the upgrade pricing is. And to be clear, Apple is not doing this by accident. This is a carefully planned business strategy, and it's one that other manufacturers will be seeking to copy as soon as they're able. Take that £200 upgrade cost that gets you just 256 gigs of additional storage. If I go and search on Amazon for a standard M.2 SSD drive in that capacity, you can see there's plenty of choice around the £20 mark. In fact, you can get a whole 500 gig Crucial P3 drive for £35, and that's a good quality drive. Here's the kicker though, each of these drives has a circuit board with the actual NAND flash storage chips, and then also the controller chips and related circuitry. They've been manufactured, gone through a distributor's warehouse or two, and then arrived at Amazon, and each of those companies is marking up the drive and making a profit. So what's the actual cost of the storage chips? But of course, you can't just go and buy one of those cheap M.2 SSD drives because your Mac doesn't use that sort of drive. In fact, the SSD controller is part of the system on chip. Your M4 chip has the SSD controller built in, and it's a very good controller that does some clever things. In fact, when it comes to SSDs, provided that you're using good quality NAND flash chips for storage, it's often the controller that makes the difference between a good drive and a not so good drive. So your Mac Mini has got a great SSD controller, but the storage is nothing more than standard NAND flash chips that probably cost just a few dollars. And when you pay for that storage upgrade, Apple doesn't have any increased inventory or manufacturing costs. They're still soldering a couple of chips to a circuit board. It's just that the robot will pick the higher capacity chips from the bin instead. I mean, it's genius. How much profit does Apple actually make on a base Mac Mini at £600 or dollars? Probably not much. They even sell it at $100 less for education, but I very much suspect that this is a loss leader, or at least a low profit baited hook reel in the consumers. And if you do just one of those £200 or dollars storage upgrades, Apple massively increases its profit margin on that sale. And they know that people will do that. So much so, they're not even scared to hide the stupidity of their pricing. Notice that it costs £200 for that 256 gigs extra, but once you've done that, the next 200 gets you 512 gigs extra. It's literally half the price. But Apple, of course, is still raking in more profit. And check this out. If I spec 32 gigs of RAM with my 512 storage, the price comes to $1,199. That's right, £1 or dollar more than buying two base spec M4 Mac Minis. You just got to think about this for a moment. You can buy two machines, each with 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. So 2 lots of 16, 2 lots of 256. It's the same total amount as our upgrade option that costs $1 more. Except if we buy two of them, we get an extra M4 chip and a whole additional Mac Mini chassis. It's utterly daft. It's infuriating. It's enough to make your teeth itch, but as a business owner, I can't help but admire the strategy. It's really easy to get confused and think that Apple is in the business of making computers, but no. Apple is in the business of making money. Computers, phones, tablets, subscription services, they're all just a vehicle to help Apple achieve that money-making goal. Now, don't get me wrong, Apple is doing amazing work. Their silicon has really shaken up the computer industry and has completely redefined what we expect from a computer. And the guys and girls who are working hard at Apple to achieve this are clearly focused on doing great things. But as I've said before, it's okay to like a product, but dislike the company that makes it. And make no mistake, the M4 Mac Mini is a very likeable computer. Personally, I'd spend the $800 and then put another couple hundred towards some fast external storage. And I'd be happy with what will be a very good computer at that price. I guess I'd just try not to think about the profiteering. Now, I'm sure you'll all have a view on this, so by all means, please share your thoughts. I look forward to reading your comments and the inevitable PC fanboy rants. Thanks for watching. See you again soon for some more geekery.